Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. You know me. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we do to achieve our goals, overcome our challenges, get empowered, and make our lives sparkle. So thanks for coming to Happy Hour today. Today we're talking about retirement. Well, actually, we're not talking about retirement. We're talking about revivement. That's what Gloria Dunn-Violin calls having a life after making a living. Now, you might already be retired, or like me, you could be years away from retirement, but some of the things Gloria has to say will flip a switch about how you see that time of your life. So she's coming to Happy Hour to explain some of that stuff to us today. And happy Victorious Woman Month. I'm excited about it. And I have something important to share with you at the end of the show. So stick around for that, and I think you'll love what I have to say. It'll be a good way to go into the weekend. And happy Cinco de Mayo. Now, I have two things to say about this date. First, I've heard people say that Cinco de Mayo is to Mexicans what Independence Day, July 4th, is to Americans. And that's not correct. The Mexican Independence Day is in September. What Cinco de Mayo commemorates for Mexicans is a big battle between Mexico and France, and Mexico won, and they weren't expected to. So Mexicans celebrate that because it was a really big deal. It's become really big in the U.S. because, this is my opinion, and it's not just because of Mexican immigration, but because it's a really big business for the bars. You know, most of them close on the 4th of July, so in their best sense of capitalism, I think they cash in on Cinco de Mayo. That's not a critique. I'm going out on Cinco de Mayo. It's fun. It's a fun day for me, especially if it's on a weekend. If it's during the week, maybe not, but Friday, Saturday, it's good. It's fun. And I'm going out with friends, and, and that's good. But I just know, historically, for me, it doesn't compare with 4th of July. And, of course, we're hearing our government talk about immigration and building a wall, and there's lots of politics about that, both pro and con. But here's the thing that has me scratching my head. The Mexican government is angry that President Trump wants to control illegal immigration by building a wall between the U.S. and Mexico. And they don't want to have to pay for it. And that part of it I really can understand. But I read that they're threatening to place a fee on U.S. citizens who go to Mexico, which, of course, will put a damper on tourism. And for that country, that would be like shooting yourself in the foot to get back at your neighbor. Doesn't make sense. And the Mexican government is angry that the illegal immigrants are being deported back to their home. Now, listen, I've been to Mexico, and certainly not as much as I would like. And I wasn't in the big, those big tourist towns like Acapulco or Cozumel. I was in Mexico City and was fascinated by its history. And I visited Chapultepec Park and Cuernavaca and the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl. That was like my big draw, the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. And I partied in Mariachi Square. I think Mexico is a beautiful country. So here's the scratch in my head part. Why are Mexican officials not concerned that so many of their citizens can't wait to leave their homeland? And it's not a new problem. Apparently, for us, it's going back since before the Reagan administration. So what's wrong with the Mexican government that in at least those 40 years, they can't fix whatever problems the country has that are making their citizens, the ones that would work there, pay taxes, be loyal, those good citizens. Why aren't they fixing the country's problems so those good citizens can stay and prosper in their own country? I mean, if you see thousands of your citizens leaving so they can have a better life someplace else, wouldn't you want to do what you could to keep your citizens there? And I certainly don't blame the citizens for leaving if they can't make a good life for themselves in their homeland. I blame the government who hasn't improved the homeland so that their citizens don't feel like they have to go someplace else to make a good life for themselves and their families, which is why people become immigrants, to have a better life, right? So the U.S. keeps having a debate about immigration, but shouldn't the debate be what's wrong with in Mexico so that so many people are leaving, and why isn't the Mexican government finding ways to fix that problem? Well, I would think the Mexican government could focus on that instead of supporting the exodus that's taking talent and taxes away from them. Don't you wonder that yourself? And maybe I'm missing something because I don't hear other people saying it. But I understand some countries have bad governments and there's genocide and the people are being persecuted, and that's why they want to leave. But that's not like that in Mexico. Well, except for the drug dealers, and that's not the government. So I wonder why the government isn't doing more to protect its own people instead of encouraging them to find a better place outside of their own country. So that kind of doesn't make sense to me. So that's one thing about May 5th. But there's something else. It's very personal for me about May 5th. Now, if you're a regular listener, you've heard me talk about how I was engaged to Jimmy when I was 22 and how breaking that engagement was created a big turning point, positive turning point in my life. Well, if I hadn't broken up with Jimmy, I would have married him on May 5th. And May 5th was the day we picked for our wedding. And I remember how his friends would joke about it and say, may the day never come. Who knew they were being prophetic about Jimmy and me? That day never did come for us. And while it was a really long time ago, I still think that on May 5th, that would have been my wedding, well, it would have been my anniversary. I'll bet some of you know what I mean. If you had a wedding day that didn't happen, or a wedding day that did happen but the marriage didn't last, don't you still think about that day, on that actual date, even if it's just a passing thought? It's like, oh, this is the day I would have gotten married. Or this is the day that I'd be celebrating my anniversary. I'll bet you do. I'll bet you wouldn't admit it to anybody. But you can tell me. Because I do it. And since I'm writing my next book, The 5-Year Marriage, I've been Googling around to check out my old boyfriends to see what they look like now. And here's the big shock. They're old. Now, not old, but in my mind, they still look like they did when I dated them, when they were 22 or 25 or 28. And they aren't anymore, but in my mind, it's just like it sort of flips in my brain, because they look like they look now, in their 50s or maybe 60s. But here's the thing. This is something else. I got cuter and they didn't. Okay, maybe they wouldn't think so, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I don't have the slightest interest in revisiting any of those relationships. Because, I couldn't have picked a better partner than Joseph. But I find that Googling around like that sort of revives me when I'm tired out from writing The 5-Year Marriage. Makes me feel like a kid again, and a giggle, so that gives me like a little energy. And you know what? I'll bet you Gloria Dunn-Violin knows exactly what I'm talking about. Let me tell you why I invited Gloria to our happy hour today. Gloria spent 25 years in corporate organizational behavior and development and 10 years as an award-winning public relations professional. And now Gloria is relishing her third career. And she's doing speaking and writing and giving workshops and webinars on how to have a life after retirement. I just finished reading her second book, It's called Revivement, Having a Life After Making a Living. And the retirement isn't on my agenda yet. It's someplace on the horizon. And so Gloria's book has given me a lot to think about, including changing the name from Retirement to Revivement. I think she'll do the same for you. In fact, yesterday I called my cousin, my cousin Marianne, and I was talking to her, and I said, you have to get this book because it has like some really good things. There's exercises in it and that kind of stuff. So that's what Gloria and I are going to be talking about in just a couple of minutes. So here's the thing. Go get some good happy hour something to drink. And we'll be back in just a few minutes with Gloria Dunn-Violin. And I've talked to her already, so I know she's a kick, and you're going to have a good time. So do that, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Gloria Dunn-Violin. And welcome to Happy Hour, Gloria.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you could be here with us. You know, Gloria, I'll bet there are a lot of my victory chicks and guys listening today who know that retirement is looming. Sooner for some, later for others, and some who are already retired. And, you know, some of them who aren't so near retirement age are thinking about their finances and having enough money to retire. But the other ones who are closer are thinking about all the projects they want to do when they aren't working full time. And a lot of people I know don't even want to think about retirement because unless they have a second career lined up, they're saying things like, well, I like what I do. I don't want to go anywhere. You know, or they're asking, what am I going to do with all my time? And you were sort of that way because you weren't really planning on retiring this last time. And then life intervened. Would you tell my listeners how it happened?
Well, it was 2008, and the recession came along, and I was already past retirement age, the traditional age. And, you know, my clients said, sorry, Gloria, we can't spend money on this stuff for our employees anymore, so you're out of work, lady. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay, I guess it's my time to stop. And it was a very unhappy thought, but being an active person, I got very active in volunteer work and taking classes and exploring this and that and the other thing to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And then 6 years after I was forcibly retired, because I never had planned it, and that's something we need to talk about. Is
yeah, and you know what? And let me stop you right there because
okay.
I do want to talk about that. Like when that happened and you were forcibly retired, how did that make you feel?
Oh, horrible, because I loved what I was doing. I've been very fortunate to love every career I've had, those two and the one I'm in now, and it was horrible. I mean, I've had my ups and downs in life. I'm pretty normal, you know. Mm-hmm. But my careers expressed me. They used me. They let me be the best of who I could be. And then when it was over, it was like, uh-oh, now what?
And you know what, Gloria? I had on Easter I had dinner with my girlfriend's parents, and one of my girlfriends and her parents, and he had his own business for years and years and years, and he didn't have to retire because he had his own business, but everybody was saying, well, Dad, it's time for you to retire, and so they did. So he did. And he's like bored out of his mind.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, the idea of retirement is changing. There are so many baby boomers who are retiring, and they're not realizing you don't have to give up what you love doing. You may change how you do it or how much time you give it. You know, you might do it part-time or 10 hours a week, but you don't have to send it away, and you incorporate other things in your life, and you balance out, and you have a great life. But just flat out retiring is not a good thing.
Well, one of the quotes you have in your book, Revivement, was, and this is your quote, society had me set up to think my options were limited as an older person and that I would be judged by a number, my age.
Yes, and I will tell your audience my age because I'm so proud to tell you I am 78. And when I was forcibly retired, I was 69. And I am having more fun in this new career this last 2.5 years, because I am expressing who I am again. I'm helping people. That's my bottom line. And it's fun. So who cares what number I am? You know what that number represents? It represents the amount of times this planet goes around the sun. It does not represent my energy, my interests, my excitement, my abilities, my skills. It doesn't represent any of that for any of us. It's a number.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the thing that makes a lot of people really nervous, because, you know, back in the day when that 65 age was set as the retirement age, people didn't live much longer than 65.
Right. That's why Social Security gave us money either at 62 or 65. They figured you were going to die when you were 66. What did they know? Now we're living to over 100.
Yeah. And I know from reading your book, that's your plan. You, Gloria, that's your plan, is to live to be over 100.
Absolutely. And doing what I love to do, and broadening myself, and still learning and still growing and still becoming the most of who I can be. And I think we all need to have that kind of look at the future. It's not an ending. It's a beginning. It's a time to incorporate all that you are into where you want to go next.
Well, Gloria, you know what? When the company you were working for couldn't fund your business anymore, or the work, you were an independent contractor, so they couldn't fund that anymore.
Right.
And then you figured, well, I guess this is my time to retire. What was the thing you disliked the most?
What I disliked the most was not using my skills. I'm a late bloomer. I went back to college in my early 30s, graduated at 36, went into my first career. I went back in my mid-40s into a master's program and graduated after that. So I'm a late bloomer, but I'm still blooming. We don't know where we're going to go from here. And it's been so much fun to be able to speak and know that I'm helping people and get the book out and know that it's going to, I hope, make a difference in people's lives. So I'm having a blast, and who cares what my number is?
Well, I don't know if you ever saw it. There was a movie, Gloria, called Last Vegas, and it was with Robert De Niro and a bunch of people. And the Kevin Kline went, and what happens is it's Michael Douglas is getting married, and he's marrying a much younger woman, and so he's getting married in Las Vegas, and he invites his 3 friends who he grew up with to join him, and they show like a little snippet of everybody's life. And the Kevin Kline character, they show him, and he's in a retirement community, and he's taken a water aerobics class, and he's looking around, and he's like, just shoot me now,
Yeah. Well,
is that how you were?
We've been socialized, you know. I mean, people, we didn't know that we were going to have another 30, 40, 50 years of life. We didn't know that we could make new choices. We didn't know a lot of things. And the thing is to now wake up and understand that life can be so much better. Yeah, if that's all I was doing every day, it'd shoot me too. I have to use myself. I have to use what I got and get it out there, you know.
You know, Gloria, I had a guest on about maybe a year or so ago, and she was doing, a psychologist that was doing research in her mother's senior living place, and she was talking to women who were in their 80s and 90s, and she asked them what they regretted the most, and she said, across the board, none of them regretted things they did. They regretted the things they didn't do.
Yes.
And said that if they knew they were going to live as long as they were living, when they were in their 50s and their 60s, they would have started that business or, you know, done other stuff.
Well, you know, this quote's in my book, don't let the music die inside of you.
That's right, yeah.
If there's something inside of you, find it and play with it. Let it come out and play and enjoy it. Just like the story about Amy, who discovered she was an artist when she had to retire, that she never had explored that part of herself before, and now she was amazed that she could put pen to paper and have beautiful drawings. You know, she found herself, and I feel for so many people who don't give themselves that chance to find out what's inside, what is you, and what wants to come out and play.
Yeah, and see, and that's where you, instead of calling it retirement, you called it revivement.
Yes.
And
yes.
You know, I don't know that word revivement. So you tell me and my listeners what you mean.
Well, I've kind of coined this phrase to replace retirement, because if you look at the word retirement, right in the middle is a word, T-I-R-E, tire. Tire means you're tired. It's over. It's ended. And I've replaced that middle four letters with V-I-V-E. Vive is about life. So revivement is a transformation into reinvigorating your life, renewing yourself, becoming more of who you want to be. We're not retiring. We're not ending. We're just beginning again, but with all the skills and talents that and experiences that we've accumulated along the way. Now we can take all of that and go forward.
Well, here's something that I thought was interesting. You say that if you change the word retirement to revivement, you can change your world. How does that happen? I mean, and you're a retirement coach, so you know how when you work with clients, what happens?
Well, the idea is, you know, we have certain mindsets. Oh, I'm retired, or I'm reviving. You're changing your world when you're changing your mind, when you're changing how you decide to see the world. It's not that the glass is half full. It's like you think of it as brimming over because there's so much. So it's taking how you see things and how you experience things and making more and the most of them rather than diminishing your opportunities by like negative thinking.
Well, before we go to that, let me ask you this question. You refer to people who are old and old, is it?
Young old.
And what does that mean?
Well, it's a mindset. I mean, you have some old people who are in their 30s, and you have some young old who are in their 90s. It's how you think. It's how you believe. It's how you frame your world. If everything is negative and down and dingy, you're an old. I don't care what your number is. But if you have taken your life experience to wherever you are and you've picked it up, and again, that doesn't mean we don't go through the ups and downs of life. I've had mine, okay? I've had cancer. I've had, there's other parts of our lives that could pull us down. But if we let them, they win. If we decide to pull ourselves up and forward march and go to the good stuff, that's where we end up. So does that make sense to you? I mean, that's the difference to me in the old and the young old.
I know. Sometimes, Gloria, when I see somebody who's, in their 30s or 40s and they're that old, like I think, oh, they're an old person in training.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because
and
they're like
sad.
they're living like 80-year-old people, and they're they still have their health, they still have a lot of energy, and they're not making the best use of it. And then there's 80-year-old people, or like you're 78 years old, and you have a bunch of energy and you're utilizing it.
Yes, yeah, and finding out what I can do and how to use myself gives me more energy. Letting me be me and participate in the world. That's energizing.
Mm-hmm. Gloria, we're going to need to take a little break, but I want to talk a little bit about the health issue and some of the other things that you suggest for in some of your exercises. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So everybody stay close, and we're going to be talking with Gloria Dunn-Violin when we come back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Gloria Dunn-Violin. And Gloria, we're talking about revivement instead of retirement. And I want to talk about that problem. You don't advocate ignoring health-related issues. Like, you're not oblivious to the fact you've had cancer, you've had some other things, and it's not that you think that you have to pretend that health-related issues don't exist, but you suggest that we don't make them a focus.
Absolutely. When you are doing your purpose or it's something you enjoy, like if I hear music, whatever it is for the individual, and your mind goes there, you forget whatever your health issue is. You don't have to stay with it and be miserable with it. Now, I know there are people who are in pain, and I'm not saying that they're not going to feel it. And
no, you're not discounting that.
No. I mean, some people really have some big issues, and I feel for them. But what I'm saying is, and I've seen examples of this, when you find something that you really get joy out of, you kind of get in a zone, and you kind of forget that you're miserable about these other things, and some of these things are physical, and some of these things are emotional. Some of these things we let get in our way. But what I'm saying is that no matter what the situation is, there is something inside each person that could give them joy and fulfillment. And if they find that, even though they may have to put up with whatever it is, they can have some of their time in a place that they're happy and feeling successful in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me share this with you and my Victory Chicks and Guys. One of my friends is Mary Jo Hitz, and she's a cancer survivor. She survived it a long time ago, but in the last couple of years, she took some experimental treatment or something that ended up that she has lymphedema. Which, for those of you who don't know, it's where a part of your body swells, and it fills with water, and so in her case, it's in her legs, or one leg, and so she always has had, for as long as I've known her, really good organizational skills and a cadre of other skills. And so when she got lymphedema, first she did like what would be normal. She went through a rough patch just trying to deal with it and learning what that meant and all that kind of stuff. It really knocked her for a loop. And then she as she got involved, and she was online, she was doing things, she got involved with getting something called the Lymphedema Treatment Act passed, which, for those of you who don't know, it's Congress can pass this act, and then your insurance will cover the treatments. And she has become such an advocate and has been putting her skills to work, not just for her own good, but for thousands of people of all ages who have lymphedema.
Good for her.
And,
Whoa.
Not only does it help her deal with her own illness, but it breathed new life into her.
Yes.
Because she has a sense of purpose different from what she was doing before.
Yes, yes.
And that's what you say is so important.
Yes, I mean that when people find a purpose and they have a mission, it really supersedes, what we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's a direction that can be exciting, fulfilling, using all your skills, making a difference, and all of a sudden that's your focus, and you don't focus on the things that bother you as much. Not that they go away, they're still there, but your energy is redirected, and you're doing something of purpose. That it's wonderful. Good for her.
And
yay.
It was, yes, I agree with you. And it was so funny. Like at the beginning, she was wearing long pants and all that. And then I ran into her in the store one day, and she had on short. She had on the culottes, and I said, "Yeah, Mary Jo." She said, "I don't care anymore." She said, "This is what I have, and I don't care." And she has those compression garments, so that's And I thought, wow, that was pretty victorious in my opinion.
Yes, good for her. Congratulations, Mary Jo. Mm-hmm. Yes, yay.
So, Gloria, if you were coaching someone getting ready for a revivement, now in your book you say it's like putting a puzzle together, and the puzzle pieces are skills, desires, and interests. So
yes.
Can you explain how that puzzle works? Like if I was doing that, what would I be doing?
Well, I do have 15 exercises in the back of the book that do help the reader figure some of that out. But, discovering our interests, our skills, putting down our experiences, putting down some information that we never thought about, like what happened to you 20 years ago and 30 years ago and 10 years ago, and all of a sudden you might see a path, and that may fill in part of the puzzle. So it's kind of discovering who you are, knowing your skills, knowing what you enjoy, knowing how you want to play in the world, all of these pieces that are you, and bringing them together to complete the puzzle. And then you can say, oh, well, if this is who I am and this is what I like, maybe I'll do this or maybe I'll do that. And you experiment and find where your joy is. And where your joy is contagious and spreads. So you're helping you and you're helping others.
So if I was putting my own Revivement puzzle together, what are some of the steps I could take?
Well, the steps, for instance, in the exercise, there's one, the first exercise says, who am I? Who am I? Do we all know who we are? And what makes us up? What makes us become who we are? I have another exercise in there that is kind of, if you were 100 years old and you had to tell your life story, what does it look like? You might be 50 or you might be 60, but what do you want to be able to say when you're 100? And let's start painting a picture of you and your aspirations and using who you are. Actors, musicians, people in all walks of life, even car mechanics and painters, house painters, they all have a skill. And they see it, and if somebody, for instance, used to love to paint houses when he was 10, and then he sees he's doing it when he's 25, and that may not be his chosen profession, but all of a sudden he's doing it when he's 40, he's saying, hey, I might continue this. I might like this. And that becomes part of his solution to his puzzle.
And I think, Gloria, I have had a lot of guests on who have, it's the subtitle of your book, how to find And please say it for me because I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, it's Revivement, having a life after making a living.
Right, so they were making a living for all of those years, and now they realize, well, I don't have to worry about making that much money. And or maybe they're comfortable enough they don't have to think about it at all. So now they can really think, well, do I like painting? What did I like to do when I was a kid?
Right.
You know, stuff like that, where they'll go into painting, or they'll just, I've had a lot of guests who have become authors.
Right. Well, like, for instance, for me, you know, I wanted to be an actress when I was a kid. Well, I'm on stage as a speaker. It's kind of related. I'm not being an actress. I'm being me on a stage, but I'm still in that path. You know, it has a similar use of my skills.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, people can see that, and they can go further with it. They can make more of it.
Well, and you know, this morning I was watching Good Morning America, and they have that segment called Deals and Steals or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And there was a woman, one of the women that they featured, one of the businesses that they featured was about cinnamon buns or something like that she makes. She makes them and sends them to people, and it was her and I think her granddaughter and granddaughter's spouse.
Uh-huh.
And she didn't start her business till she was 73.
See, good for her.
But she was a baker, so like that was what she loved doing, and now she has an online business doing that, which I thought was pretty neat.
It is neat. Well, you know, Grandma Moses, we thought she was amazing when she started painting at 70. That was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And we thought that was amazing. Well, it is amazing still. Although you're seeing people who are working in their 70s, 80s, even 90s. I mean, and again, it doesn't have to be full-time. It can be however you want to design it, and that's the beauty. And some people have worked just to make a paycheck because they needed to, and maybe they don't anymore. And maybe some still do need to make a paycheck, and that's okay, too. You know, you decided. Here's a quick example. I know of a man who was an architect design person, and he sat in a cubicle for 30 years. And he said, when I retire, the thing I want most is to be outdoors and walking around and exercising. And guess what he became? He became a mailman. Now, he's happy. God bless him. He's a mailman. And he'll do that for a couple years, and then he'll say, oh, now I think I want to do something else. He may switch out, or he may do that till he's 100. Mm-hmm. But he's doing whatever satisfies him. He's outdoors, and he's walking. He's delivering mail.
And who would think that you could be, like, and that's what you're talking about with skills and desires and interests, that you say, well, what do I really want to do now? And then this man was... You have a lot of really good stories in Revivement, and I like that particular one because it's very clear that he wanted to be outside after sitting in a cubicle for 30 years. He wanted to be outside. Who would think to be a postman at that, you know, at that stage of life?
But the important thing is, he's happy.
Yep.
He's happy.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. He's doing what he wants. He's happy. And then he doesn't have to do it forever. He can decide he's going to do something else, or he can do it forever. I mean, total choice. I think that's an important word that we need to have in this conversation, is we all are at choice, even when things don't go well, and even when we're not always in health.
And you
are.
Gloria, and you say that shift, that mind shift to say, well, I'm not a victim, but that I'm in control.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal.
Absolutely. And if there's negative thoughts, please erase them and replace them with positive thoughts. You can't imagine some of the stuff we've grown up with that invade our brain with negativity. Mm-hmm. And we have to recognize it in the moment and wipe it out and replace it with positive thinking. And I did that years ago. And then I taught how to replace those kind of negative thoughts, because I grew up with them too. Mm-hmm. But you can do that, and your life feels better. You feel more positive. It's just better.
And you were talking about the idea of being happy, and you mentioned that several times. And in Revivement, you talk about deserving to be happy.
Yes, we all deserve to be happy.
But is that an issue? But let me ask you this. Is that an issue? When people come to you for retirement coaching, do they feel that they can't be happy or that they don't deserve to be happy?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I'm afraid it depends on what their lives have been like and how they've controlled their lives, the choices they've made. And a lot of people feel like victims to their circumstances or to their past. And I'm saying, forget that. In the book, if you remember, I have an area about the brain. We can learn new things. We can become smarter. We can also change how we think about ourselves and our lives. And it's important work. And if someone hasn't started it yet, please start it, because you can change your life when you change your attitude and your perspective.
And on that note, I want to hold on to that thought and bring it back when we come back from our break, Gloria.
Okay.
So everybody hang in there with Gloria Dunn-Violin and me, Annmarie Kelly. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly. We're here with Gloria Dunn-Violin, and we're talking about her book, Revivement. And Gloria, I want to ask you this question. If in that deserving to be happy thing, you say there are 3 prerequisites for earning our happiness. You say they're attitude, mind, thoughts, and optimism. Can we talk about each one of them?
All right. Well, attitude is so important. It's, again, how we choose to see life and how we choose to interact with life. And that gets into optimism, which is, seeing the glass not half full, but brimming over. The opportunities. I think what people forget is when we have these ups and downs in life, well, the downs for me have always been teachers. They've always taught me lessons. I paid attention. And, you're not always having a good time when you're in one of those downs, but you do pay attention. And if you can take the value of what you've learned and move it forward, then you see the benefit, then you can be optimistic, then you can have the good attitude because you know that it's taking you to a better place. And what's the third one you wanted?
Well, it was attitude, mind, thoughts, and optimism. But here's the question I want to ask you now. That since our last election, with all the negativity in social media, I think it's hazardous to our health. And in fact, I wrote a blog post about it because I thought, so many people have been saying, I'm getting off Facebook because there's all this negative, and it doesn't matter what side you're on, it's negative.
Right.
And you say that kind of negative thinking takes a toll on our bodies. How so?
Oh, definitely. I avoid most of that. I really don't need it. I scan the headlines. I think, oh, there it goes again. But I'm not going to take it in. And it's just like I'm not going to see a movie that upsets me just before I go to bed. I choose to see the world more positively, but I don't ignore the reality.
Right.
I know what's going on. I get enough information just to stay on top of it, but I don't have to eat it and drink it and sleep it and let it cause me ulcers, because I can only change me. I can only change my behavior and how I impact the world and how I let it impact me. And I choose not to get wrapped up in that stuff.
Well, you say that our thoughts program ourselves. And what do you mean by that?
Well, because whatever we think if we think we can, and if we think we can't, we can't. Our thoughts take us to places that maybe we don't want to go. And they can instead take us to where we do want to play, where we do want to enjoy ourselves, where we do want to live. They're very powerful. Your mind believes everything it hears. It doesn't know if it's right or wrong, good or bad. It just believes it. It acts on it.
I know in Weight Watchers they were saying that one of the things they were asking was, what are you telling your body?
Right.
And that your body doesn't know whether it's the truth or not. And if you tell your body it's fat, then your body's fat. If you tell your body it's skinny, then it focuses on skinny.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, Gloria, you talk about something called, I don't know if I'm saying it right, telomeres?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's emerging research. What are telomeres?
Okay, well, telomeres, if you think of your DNA, okay, and if you think of the strands, the chromosomes, the ends of that DNA, and I want you to remember, I'm not a scientist. I do research, so I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist. I just do research. So, but they're the caps at the end of each strand of DNA, and they protect your chromosomes. They're like, for instance, the plastic tips on shoelaces. Mm-hmm. If the plastic tips come off, the shoelaces start to fray.
Right.
So telomeres, if they are kept intact, will keep our life intact. But if they get shorter, then our life gets shorter. And my point in talking about them in the book is that stress absolutely shortens your telomeres, and the telomeres are about biological age, okay, not chronological age. So if you have a lot of stress, it deteriorates your telomeres, and you age faster. And that's the point I want to make, is that stress is a killer, and I hope people will be more careful about whatever they let stress them out, because it causes all kinds of diseases, all kinds of problems, and it shortens your life.
Well, you say that we can delay the decline of telomeres, and besides dealing with our stress, what other ways can we delay the decline of telomeres?
Well, eating right, exercising, doing all the healthy things that you keep reading about. Do you remember the story about the man from Icaria, Greece? Mm-mm. He lived in one of what they call the blue zones, and the blue zones are way out in the ocean somewhere. People have a lifestyle that is stress-free. They eat more of a Mediterranean diet. They have a lot of social opportunity. They build community. They have purpose. They have all these important components of a healthy life. And so this man, he came to this country, and when he was in his 60s, he was diagnosed with cancer. So he went home to Icaria to die. Now he's 102, wondering how come he's still alive. And that's because he went back to a lifestyle that brought back his health. He never had any chemo. He never had any radiation, never had surgery. He just went back to Icaria. So it's how we live our lives makes such a big difference.
So I was with my cousin, one of my cousins earlier this week, and we were talking about some of those things. We were talking about some family things, and one of the things that I'm kind of, and I live with this in my life, that I don't like people. Well, I don't like people yelling at me, and I don't like negative people in my life. And if they happen to be part of my family, then I just let them go because they're stealing my joy.
Yes, good for you. Yes, I agree with you 10 million %. Yes.
And that's hard for some people because it's my family. Yeah, but they're stealing your joy and they're killing you.
Right. Exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yes, you've said it perfectly. I can't even make it any better than that.
So I think sometimes if you're talking about revivement, it would seem to me that's like a place where we can I love how you put it. You said delay the decline of our telomeres, and I loved that.
Yes, you bring joy into your life like you're talking about, and you put the other healthy components into your life and make it work. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you're not going to have ups and downs and you're not going to have upsets. We are human. These things happen. But it's how you interact with them. It's how you allow them into your life. And like you said, you're just not going to allow that. You made a choice. Good for you. I'm with you.
Mm. There's something else. We don't have too much time left, Gloria, but there's something that I want you to tell my listeners about, because
okay.
I had never heard of it before. But sometimes if you're in a big house and then you think, well, the house is too big, I'm going to move into a retirement community, and you don't really want to do that. You say there's something called lily pad.
Yes. Lily pad, somebody locally, I'm in California, somebody locally who happens to be an accredited residential designer and general contractor became a single working mom, and she didn't want to lose her house. So what she did is she took one of the big master bedroom, actually, and turned it into a lovely little apartment with a little kitchen, with their own bathroom, with a front door, and totally private.
So people could come and go, and it's like renting out an apartment in your house.
Right, but it's totally private, totally separate. You don't even have to ever see anybody else. And she designed this for herself, and then she thought, oh, there are other people who might use this design, and she called it Lily Pad. I mean, that's the name she gave it. But there are people whose children grow up and leave, and they don't really want to give up their house, but it's a little too big for them. Well, if they want a little more income, that's just one option. If they want to stay in their house and make some income, they can have it redesigned like a lily pad. And voila, they stay where they are. Some people want to, quote unquote, retire in place. They want to stay in their community where they live. So that's good, Gloria. That lily pad thing is an interesting concept, and we have to go. So before we go, you can tell my listeners how they can get a copy of Revivement. Revivement, Having a Life After Making a Living, is on Amazon.com. Hopefully it's in your bookstores, and if it isn't, please ask your bookstore to order it, because it's at Ingram Spark, which is where they can order it from. But again, it is on Amazon.com, and if you want to go to my website, revivementbook.com, there's a button there that you can push, and it'll take you to Amazon.com. So those are the options.
And that information, and you have a special offer for our listeners today, and I posted that on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com.
Thank you.
Gloria, thanks for coming with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. See, that's what life's about.
I'm glad, Gloria. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And just so that you know, there was more I was going to tell you, but we was so interesting with Gloria that I went over. So next week I'll tell you the rest of it. But here's something that I want to share with you. This is in terms of Revivement, from my book, Victorious Woman. Jean Ott is an amazing Brit who broke through glass ceilings in corporate America and then started a women's leadership company in Manhattan, and has put thousands of women on a path to success. And something that she said that I've always thought was so interesting, she said, and this is her quote, "It's never too late to start a new journey. It doesn't have to be a big journey. It can be a little one. Just start it. You can change it by saying, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, and if it doesn't work, I'll try something else. But just start that journey." So I think Jean Ott spoke the truth. And say it's going to be a rainy weekend and you won't be able to do outside work, so do some inside work. Go figure out what your next step is to victory. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for Happy Hour. Have a victorious weekend, and I'll talk to you next Friday. Please come back. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.